Boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, Elon Musk has never been one to shy away from the fact that he's a gamer and he's giving his opinions on the current state of the video game industry. And as many people can tell, that a lot of the gaming industry, especially a lot of major AAA corporations, whether it be your very basic Wizards of the Coast, Dungeons and Dragons, all the way up to your AAA game studios like Sony and Microsoft, have obviously doubled down on a lot of the DEI kind of nonsense that we've seen come out of video games. And obviously we've seen what kind of disastrous dumpster fire this has been to the video game industry. I mean, all we have to do is go back to the very recent memory of Concord, which has turned into the biggest video game disaster in history, boys and girls, costing the Sony Corporation over $500 million, causing them to fire pretty much everybody involved with that entire studio and shut the whole thing down. I mean, literally, this thing lasted on 2 weeks before Sony shut the entire servers down, pulled the game from every single platform you could get it on, and refunded everybody's money. It's one of those kind of insane situations where this shows you the kind of disastrous dumpster fire that the current DEI state finds ourselves in. Well, boys and girls, Elon Musk is officially throwing his hat in the ring of the video game industry, because this is going to something that is going to shake the very foundations of the video game industry, much like what happened when he bought Twitter and turned it into X. This is going to be something very similar. Now, the real question is, obviously, can he pull this off? But at the end of the day, anybody that doubts Elon Musk and his intent on when he does something to make it the bestest and most wonderful thing you've ever possibly seen, well, ladies and gentlemen, all you have to do is look at the fact that we will end up on Mars because of this man and because of his genius. Look at the kind of the things that have happened with how much changed with the fact that he bought X and bought Twitter, turned it into X. I mean, the election wouldn't have happened the same way it did, boys and girls, if it was not him for giving us a bastion place for free speech. And Elon Musk has not hid his opinions on what's going on and a lot of the DEI stuff going on in the modern era. And now he's officially putting them on notice that he is coming for their asses. And boys and girls, it's a beautiful thing to see. So we're going to check a tweet out from him. Of course, check out what spurned this idea from him, as well as go over some of his history and some of the opinions he's already talked about when it comes to a lot of the regards to these video games out there. But before we do, if you do enjoy our content, hit that like button, share with all your friends, and subscribe or follow if you have not already, boys and girls, because we are grinding, we are growing, and I could not do that without every single one of you. Also, leave us a comment in the section down below. What do you think about this? Does this give you optimism for the future of the gaming industry out there? Do you think this will cause a lot of the other corporations out there to change their ways, much like him buying Twitter has done to a lot of the other social media apparatuses out there as well? Or do you think this is just more smokescreen BS nonsense because you can't stand Elon Musk and you get so angry at the fact that he just keeps on winning? Let us know what you think about all that in the comment section down below. And if you'd like to support the channel, please check out the links in the description as well. So, boys and girls, Elon Musk. Too many game studios that are owned by massive corporations. Well, as a big fan of decentralization, I think all of us can agree on that one. XAI is going to start an AI game studio to make games great again. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, honestly, at this point, it shouldn't come as a big shock to anybody out there in any way, shape, or form. I mean, this is one of the same guy that commented on the whole Dragon Age Veilguard thing about the fact that they had pronouns inside of the video game. The fact that the Dungeons and Dragons, Wizards of the Coast, current studios out there, the people controlling the narrative, were bashing Gigits and all of the rest of the original creators of Dungeons and Dragons, and Elon Musk was simply not having in part of it. He's flat out said in the past that diversity, inclusion, and equity, yes, because DIE is a better acronym for it, because all it does is cause video games and everything else it touches to go and die, is one of them situations where he's commented how it literally destroys creativity in the past. We have seen this with things like Star Wars Outlaws. Star Wars Outlaws is a prime example. It had a gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous and stunning protagonist that they intentionally uglified inside of the video game just to own the chuds and avert that evil male gaze, because God knows no woman actually likes to find attractive and actually see other people find her beautiful in any way, shape, or form. No. There's never been a woman in the history of the world that has ever wanted that or desired it in any way, shape, or form. And so at the end of the day, we saw what happened with Star Wars Outlaws and what they did. They concentrated too much on all of their acronyms and all of the rest of their nonsense. And what did they give you? A $130 broken and buggy mess right from the get-go. That literally any of you fools out there that paid enough money to actually get early access to the game had all of your early access completely and totally scrubbed. Why? Because they concentrated on identity politics over actually giving you a good quality story and making sure a game wasn't just a broken and buggy mess. And then they ignored their fan base as well when all of their fans were out there crying and going, look, Ubisoft, this game looks broken as all hell. It looks like a buggy mess. You need to shelve this for a little while and go back to the drawing board and polish this thing up. And guess what? They didn't. In their own arrogance and their own narcissism, they ignored the customer. They ignored you, the gamer out there, all so that way they could shove this nonsense out and go, no, we're superior. We know better than all of you. How of that work. That thing, if anything, barely cracked 1 million copies. It's turned into a disastrous dumpster fire when it launched on Steam. It is going to cost Ubisoft hundreds of millions of dollars, and it's all because they ignored their fans and they decided to concentrate on identity politics and try to go after this modern audience that simply does not exist. It never has and it never will. The video game industry, along with Hollywood, has the exact same audience that it has always had. We all love the exact same things that we've always loved. A good story, good quality gameplay, engaging graphics, engaging characters, and guess what? Hot women, because guess what? They have no problem whatsoever objectifying the men in these games and making them look like ripped Adonises straight off of the freaking Mount Olympus. They have no problem with that, but God forbid you have a woman with actual curves that relate to an actual decent bust size that'll actually give you some decent cleavage. And oh, I know, don't even talk about the fact that you want to add jiggle physics to your game. You know, I don't know, anybody that's ever watched a girl's volleyball game or a track meet knows, hey, guess what? Those actually exist in real life. God forbid you do that, because everybody has an absolute meltdown over that as well. And guess what? Elon Musk has seen all of this. He has been watching all of this. This guy, like, I don't even know if he sleeps at this point. If he does, it's probably just a couple hours from now, because he is on the pulse of all of this kind of stuff all the time. And we know he's a huge gamer. Why? Because last I heard, he was literally the #1 Diablo player in the world. Boys and girls, the #1 Diablo player in the world. And he did it just by grinding away and playing at the game because he loves it. He's even live streamed it on X in the past. This guy is not only a genius, is not only an incredible businessman, and is not only an absolute nerd and geek, he's also a gamer, and he's never hidden that. He's talked about this over and over again. We have seen him stream video games. He even uses it, he chooses his video game streams so that way you can show off all of the wonderful technology with Starlink and how well it works, and the fact that you can still stream to it and you can stream to X and you don't have any problems with that kind of stuff. This guy is committed to the gaming industry. So what spurned this from Shitabadoshi Nakamoto, which supposedly, according to his profile, which I have no reason not to believe him here, is actually the creator of the Dogecoin, which, hell yeah, if that's the case, I love you, dude. And guess what? You got 2.2 billion followers, so I'm going to assume you're the actual Doge creator, because thank you very much. Trust me, that worked out very well for me and mine. So Shibosi says, I don't understand how game developers and game journalists got so ideological captured. Gamers have always been trolls, anti-greedy corporations, anti-BS. Gamers have always rejected dumb, manipulative BS and can tell when someone is an outsider poser. Why lean into the BS? Well, maybe Nakamoto is asking a redundant question, but for those of you that don't know, let me give you a little history lesson, boys and girls, because this is what happens when the colleges get taken over by a very specific ideology, right? And if anybody out there doubts the fact that your colleges have done that, go look at all the protests in Berkeley and all of these other higher institutions of learning out there, okay? So they got taken over by this ideology. Call it woke, call it the spirit of the age, call it the cult, call it the alphabet soup mafia, whatever you want, it's all the same thing. That's why I like Spirit of the Age, because that's exactly what it is. It's the same Spirit of the Age that we're facing now that our ancestors faced in the Old Testament. So what does the Spirit of the Age do? So the Spirit of the Age realizes that the easiest place for it to work is, so the academia of the 60s, all of those crazy radicals and all that kind of stuff, figured out that the best way for them to take hold of the culture and actually change things, because they could realize they couldn't convince common sense Americans to actually buy off on all the ideology, because anybody that's been around for a little while or had some lived life experiences realizes this stuff is total BS and it doesn't work. That's why they have to brainwash people. That's why they go after kids. That's why they go after college students, because they're easily manipulated and their heads are easily warped. You try to do this to a 40-year-old, like what Hollywood has been trying to do and what the video game industry has been trying to do, and they're going to tell you to go get bent, and they're not going to buy your stuff, which is why Hollywood has lost hundreds of billions of dollars over the last decade. It's the same reason why the video game industry has lost hundreds of billions of dollars in the last decade or so, and probably much longer than that. So this is what happens. So all these little radical, crazy, woke people from back in the 60s took over the colleges, right? They took over the colleges, they took over academia, and then they warped all the minds of all of these college students out there, right? And then what happens, right? So you've got all of these guys that have built these establishment companies, you know, that have been around there forever since the foundings and all that kind of stuff, right? They're getting old. They're looking to hire some new fresh blood. You know, these guys are fresh out of college. They're AAA students. They've got all these great credentials. Yeah, they look great on paper. You know, they smile real nice. They shake your hand. They tell you how much they love video games and all this other kind of stuff. And then they get into your HR department. And then from their HR department, they get into your marketing department, right? And then the HR department, they start slowly hiring all of their friends, which are ideological driven people that think exactly like they do, right? It's more of the cult. It's more of the spirit of the age. It's more people that are possessed by the spirit of the age are the kind of people that hire. What do I mean by possessed by the spirit of the age? People that will literally burn down an entire company in order to sacrifice, own the chuds, push their agenda, and try to brainwash people into believing that their warped sense of reality, their warped perception of reality is the correct direction, right? And that's what you see getting all the pushback right now, because now it's come completely out in the front. They're no longer back there in the shadows. They're not trying to hide it anymore. They're trying to go full bore on this other kind of stuff. So they take over your marketing department. They convince all of your old board members and all of your founders of the company that this is the new hot thing. This is what's going to work out great. And sometimes they even worm their ways all the way into higher positions of power. CEOs of companies, heads of studios, heads of game development. We've seen that happen with Dragon Age Veilguard. All you have to do is take one look at the guy, yes, guy, that created Dragon Age Veilguard and realize with all of his funky color hair and all the pronouns in his bio exactly what kind of mental delusion he is. That is a guy that is possessed by the spirit of the age. That is a guy that is down for the cult. So they work their way into those kind of things, and then you see the result where we're at right now. They are true believers. They are willing to sacrifice your game studio, all the fans, and all the money that they can get their grubby little hands on the altar to their cult. And that's what's happened to the video game industry. It's the exact same thing through Hollywood. It's the exact same thing through all of your institutions. It's the exact same process of the spirit of the age, of this cancer, of this woke mind virus infecting all of these institutions out there. It's the exact same thing in the video game industry. Now we have seen the full fruition of that, right? And all of these companies have lost billions of dollars getting bought off on this lie of a modern audience. And we have seen so many of our favorite franchises absolutely destroyed. Dragon Age has been around for over 2 decades. Wizards of the Coast, Dungeons and Dragons, what, the 70s, right? These are all legacy institutions in the gaming industry that they have decimated and destroyed with their spirit of the age cult-like nonsense. Their ideology has devastated and destroyed all this kind of stuff. And guess what? We still need good video games. We need good quality competition. When all of these AAA game studios are taken over by the exact same spirit of the age, that are taken over by the exact same cult, they will continue to produce the exact same kind of garbage because this infection runs deep. And outside of massive layoffs and huge purges from your corporations, like we have seen from other major entertainment industry corporations out there, without doing something like that, you are never going to be able to restore yourself to the proper game you've ever been to. And then the other problem with that is these ideologues run off anybody of actual talent because guess what? Positive toxicity out there, a positive environment, it does not work well to actually people being trying to criticize and make things better, which is what real creatives want to do. Cult members just want everybody to say yay and praise them, and that's why your video game industries, they don't correct themselves. That's why Star Wars Outlaws came out as a broken and buggy mess, because that's why everybody was just like, oh yeah, no, it's great, it's fine, let's release it. And you saw the exact same thing from IGN. They were praising that game even though anybody with half a brain could look at it and tell it was a broken and buggy mess just from the previews that IGN was giving us. So that's where we find ourselves now. And this is what sparked this response. Because competition breeds excellence. And Elon Musk is going to give the AAA studios the kind of competition they deserve. Am I saying he's going to come out with some banger in 6 months or a year? No. We all know the kind of time frame that video games generally take to create. I mean, it can be anywhere from 3 to 5 years, if not longer, depending on size and scale and scope of the game. What kind of stuff would Elon create? Probably most likely RPGs. That seems to be some of his favorite stuff. And considering the current era of RPGs and how broken and busted, I mean, outside of what, Baldur's Gate 3, which even then still had plenty of the ideology in it, but still also at the same time, their story and they're giving you a good quality game mattered more than their ideology only. They actually still produced a good quality game with that one, even having some of the identity politics in there. And at the end of the day, that's the thing. The majority of the gamers out there, just like the majority of the Megumi goers out there, don't care if you have a gay character in there. They don't care if you have a trans character in there. They don't care about any of that kind of nonsense. If the character's just in there and existing and is an integral part of the story, it makes sense. But when the ideology is continually shoved down your throat, when you're forced into a pronoun situation to use something that goes against your ideology, that goes against your faith, that goes, if you're a Christian, just choosing and pronouncing this whole pronoun bias is buying into this demonic cult that goes completely and totally against your faith. If you're an actual Christian and you use pronouns, you really need to question your faith and who you're loyal to. So this is why he's gotten here. This is why he's gotten here. He's not going to put up with it anymore, and he's going to give them competition. And at the end of the day, this is going to be incredible for the video game industry. Just the mere threat of Elon Musk putting them on notice and saying that I am coming for your market share is going to send shivers down the video game industry. Too many game studios are owned by massive corporations. XAI is going to start an AI game studio to make games great again. Yes, games and games and all of it out there, boys and girls. They are going to make games great again. And I hope he does. All of us, I think, could use, given the best part about this is we all have back catalogs. Anybody that's on Steam, how many of us have a back catalog of a bunch of games that we've never played because we bought them on discount or we bought them on sale or it looked like something that'd be cool that I'd want to get around to eventually? That's the best part. You don't need, just like Grum says, you don't need to go to these AAA studios for anything. If they put pronouns in their game, I don't care how good the game is, don't buy it. If they're going to force all this kind of diversity, if they're going to intentionally uglify your characters, don't buy it, because all of that stuff leads up to a broken and buggy mess, just like we saw with Star Wars Outlaws. The only reason Ubisoft delayed Assassin's Creed Shadows is because they know it would have been just as much of a disastrous dumpster fire as Star Wars Outlaws. No one inside of those companies is willing to take their belt off and tell these ridiculous kids that they are doing the wrong thing and that their stuff is broken and messed up and it needs to be fixed. And guess what? Elon Musk decided to go, hold my beer and watch this, because we're going to make gaming great again. And I cannot wait to see what kind of stuff he comes up with, because even if a lot of it's generated by AI and then it has to be polished off by actual good creatives out there, even if it takes us 2, 3, or 4 years, but considering the kind of speed that Elon normally goes after things, I'd imagine we'll probably see something in the next couple of years, if not sooner. And boys and girls, that is a very exciting time. The market is getting decentralized. More and more players are stepping into the arena. And at the end of the day, competition absolutely breeds excellence. Meritocracy is the way to go. And if Elon Musk can give us one more bit of competition out there in the video game industry and put all the rest of these studios on notice that we are not going to put up with this diversity, inclusion, and equity nonsense anymore, and they can shove their pronouns where the sun don't shine, well then, boys and girls, I'm all here for it. Let's make games great again.